And good evening. Welcome to another edition of Public Concern here on Ghana Television. Now, this is a program we have designed to bring you all the concerns around our cities, our communities, and our towns, how we can make our communities, cities, and towns livable, productive, and sustainable, and also resilient. Now, we have highlighted quite a number of these problems that we talk about almost all the time. So sanitation, flooding, the traffic, congestion, the slums that are springing up, and all of that. Food that we even eat, how safe are they, whether the foods are even available, how secured are we in terms of having food security and all of that. So these are the concerns of us as people living in communities, cities, and towns, which we have been discussing on this platform. Now, the past couple of days, thanks to the Ministry for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, they held a very important forum, which they have held for almost a decade and a half, and if not more, always trying to bring together experts and people who are passionate about all these issues that concern you and I in our cities and towns to discuss how best we can build on what we have, develop it, improve it, and make our lives better in our cities and towns. Tonight, our concern is going to be around this. How do we even bring you in, bring everybody in, make sure that we all work together to make our communities livable, productive, and sustainable, also resilient. We're going to take you back to the urban forum that happened, and I have very important guests who attended and partook in that particular urban forum, who will be sharing their thoughts with us and how we can improve. So all the problems, all the concerns that you have been sharing with us on this platform tonight, we're going to talk about them because they were discussed extensively at the Ghana Urban Forum 2024. Let me take you there. We'll be right back. Well, so that is what transpired at the recently held Ghana Urban Forum, the 2024 edition. So the problems you and I are facing in our various communities, in our cities and towns, indeed, they concern a lot of people. You're not the only one. So sometimes when I read the messages, plenty, my road is bad, light off, this hospital is not functioning. Yes, it's a problem for all of us. And everybody is discussing this. So the Ministry for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development held that particular forum. And we have to say congratulations to that ministry because they've been doing this. And I'm sure you hear from my guests. They've been doing this for many, many, many years, discussing and trying to see how best they can solve some of these problems. And as I've always been saying on this platform, we just don't come here and talk because people complain. You talk plenty, we don't see the results. Yes, we come here, try to bring the experts here, those who are functioning out there to ensure that your communities are safe. We bring them here, they discuss their issues, and they step out to function. Fortunately, the Garrett Project that supports this program is doing quite a lot when it comes to the 17 assemblies they are operating within the Greater Accra region. And so the Garrett Project, as I've been saying on this platform, is the Greater Accra Resilient Integrated Development Project. And not just them. So quite a number of the experts that we have had on this platform always step here, they step out there, and they function for you and I are good. Also supported, indeed, by the ministries that are holding them up. So the Ministry for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development is one of them. The Ministry for Works and Housing in particular is also another. And then the Ministry for Sanitation as well. And proudly supported by the World Bank. And tonight, my guest representing the World Bank is Ms. Catherine Lynch. She's a senior urban specialist, World Bank. She's also task team leader with the Garrett Project and the Ghana Secondary Cities Support Program. So that will be GSCSP. Am I right?
Got it.
Good. Okay. Also with us is our one and only lady who has moderated that Ghana Urban Forum forever. I wouldn't even say that number of years. I'm sure you hear from her forever. Dr. Esther Ofe Abwaje is former director, Institute of Local Government Studies, also governance and social policy analyst. And she's also the board chair of Star Ghana. Doc, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And proud to have with us Ms. Kathleen Addy. She's the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE. Mm-hmm. Good to see you, Ms. Addy. So I think I have to try and do well and use all the last names because we are blessed. Today is the only day, I think, so far that I've had. I'm blessed to have three wonderful, strong ladies. I have to thank God for that. We are blessed to have you. And thank you for making time for this program, ladies. I'm going to start with you, Doc, and that's also because of what I said introducing you, that you have moderated the Ghana Urban Forum forever, ever since it began. So I think about a week or two ago, we had the 2024 edition. What's the significance of the Urban Forum? Why the Urban Forum?
Right. I'm delighted to be here. Like you said, the Urban Forum has been organized since 2009. Mm-hmm. We haven't done it every year, but we've done it significantly to bring stakeholders in the urban space or people with an interest in urban development and urban issues together. Yeah. And so the forum or the fora serve as a platform for bringing professionals from the built environment, engineers, surveyors, and all of those kinds of people, architects, researchers, local government authorities, planners, and then also people from the private sector, civil society, and policy makers together. In some years, we've been blessed to have traditional authorities participate. And one particular year, the theme was My City, My Say. So we had people come in, from
So the regular people?
Regular people.
All right.
Except that lately we haven't had that kind of participation. But the point is, it brings people together to come and reflect on urban issues. It reflects the multifaceted nature of urban concerns. I mean, in your introduction, you talked about the issues of sustainable, productive, resilient living, issues of economies, food security, and increasingly since the new urban agenda in 2016, the issues of social inclusion and poverty reduction have also come to the fore. So they discuss these things. It also provides an opportunity for those who've done some interesting research to drill down on critical issues. I think this year there was a lot of discussion on transport.
So that's coming from the academia, right?
That's right, a lot of that. So we get to share those kinds of findings. We also get the opportunity to listen to international direction in urban development so that you get to hear what is happening in other countries and the implications for Ghana and Ghanaian urban development. So it allows for this kind of discussion. It actually also informs policy. I mean, for instance, it was the basis for the development of the 2012 National Urban Policy, and a lot of the inputs from the 2022 forum also informed the draft National Urban Policy that we hope will come to fruition soon. So it also allows for testing, policy proposals, policy initiatives to see how it sits with the various stakeholders. Because like I said, urban issues are multifaceted, multi-interests, multi-stakeholders, so that you need to have a certain consensus to move urban development where you want it to go.
And I think that connects well with and I'm seeing the theme for this year, which talks about how you combine policies and the partnerships that we have in order to build the resilient cities. So essentially, you bring all your partners together under one roof, discuss, come out with a number of issues that can eventually form policies, inform policy.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. This year's theme was very evocative because nurturing roots, for me, emphasized the need for ownership and local action, and taking responsibility for the kinds of cities we wanted to build. And again, growing futures that quite a bit of our development so far has been quite haphazard, in the sense that we haven't followed our intentions, but we need to be able to take a longer-term vision of where our population growth is taking us and the kinds of trends that we want to see. And again, in the past, there have been a number of policies that have implications for urban development. Transport policies, waste and sanitation policies, urban agriculture, all of these have to be able to be coordinated and consolidated. And even beyond that, be able to track implementation of policy to make sure that we are able to time test and we are able to monitor how we're doing. The partnerships have been critical because there's a need for partnerships between the public, the private, and the civil society sectors. There's a need for partnerships even within ministries, departments, and agencies. There's a need for horizontal and vertical partnerships. And I'm sure, as my other colleagues will point out, there is the attention on developing secondary cities and the linkages and building those kinds of partnerships also. So the theme was long, but it was meaningful in that regard.
It meant for the purpose. Yes. But and I'll come to you, maybe, Ms. Adi. The fact that we all recognize that we live in communities, we are responsible for how productive that community is. We are responsible for how livable that community will be. So I have to be responsible for the nature of sanitation I want to see in a community that I'm living. The traffic congestion, how do I also contribute, or how my actions or inactions can lead to things of that nature. First of all, help us understand from where you sit whether what you make of our cities and towns. At the moment, do you see that they are livable the way we want them to be? They are as productive as we wish for them to be. And what can we do better?
Right. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. As far as how our cities are, whether they are livable, whether we are happy, I think we all know the answer to that.
We are not happy. Me, I'm not happy with my traffic, honestly.
Yes, not only are we not happy with
Yeah.
traffic is not the only thing. We are not happy with the
Sanitation.
way... Sanitation is one. We are not happy with the way infrastructure is coming up in a manner that is haphazard. We are not happy in the way green spaces are being co-opted into concrete jungles.
Great.
We are not happy with a lot of things. And so for this forum, it gives me great joy. This is the first time I'm participating in my capacity, of course. And I think it's so important because we need to understand that this has to be about people. At the end of the day, cities, towns, communities are what they are because of the people who live there.
Yeah.
And how these people live, how they grow, how they thrive is what brings the city alive. And so it's important that we bring that perspective to bear. I'm so happy about, I think it's a fantastic idea in the previous forums where you talked about my city, my say, or my city, my voice. I think that is so important because you must factor in the voices of the people who live and experience the city on a daily basis. I always say that when it comes to these things, policy is on one side, but people taking responsibility and becoming a part of the solution to the problems that they see is the other part of the equation. We can't be crying about poor sanitation when we are part of the problem of poor sanitation, when we are dumping garbage in drains. The day we get a flood because drains are choked, you can't be part of the people on the street protesting about flooding. You know, it doesn't actually compute. So it is important that on the other side, we have to let people understand that they have agency, that they are not just sitting there for things to happen to them, but
Take responsibility.
They should take responsibility, and they must see themselves as agents of the changes that are required to build the cities that we want, that will let us thrive, work, grow, prosper in peace together as communities. So for me, as coming from NCC, that is the angle that excites me most. The idea that people, residents of cities and towns will have a say or will get to understand these processes. This is not professionally, this is not my space.
Yeah.
So for me, it was great to be there because cities are almost like living beings. There are things that go on beneath our feet, for instance. That was the most fascinating thing for me because there were issues around even how cables are laid.
Yeah.
There are things that go on beneath our feet that have serious implications for how we live. Because if your cable gets sliced, for instance, it has implications for electricity, businesses, well-being, food in freezers.
Yeah.
You know, food in freezers. So, and then you come up there's at every level from ground all the way to the top of your biggest skyscraper. At every point, it is important to have that human element. I'm also particularly thrilled because it is so important for us right now to be part of the climate change mitigation agenda. We can no longer just sit back and act as if it doesn't concern us, or we are small people and these are big things. The actions we take every day, the choices we make every day, are important in this respect. How, as people, how we have decided to accept what the city offers us. For instance, I find it unacceptable that we don't have tree-lined streets. We don't have trees that provide shade for pedestrian ways. There are so many of these things, but without our active involvement, without bringing the people on board, without the people recognizing their agency, we will always have this gap where policymakers are doing the policy making. People are living their lives and nobody's happy.
Yeah. And I am happy about the role that you played in this particular edition, because you chaired this edition, remarkably so, for that matter. And if I gather from you, so we agree and we accept that there is a lot more we can do to improve the lives that we're living at the moment within our communities and cities. And we have to be responsible for that as people. Would you be able to tell us if, as a country, we are also putting across the requisite policies that would also meet the people halfway, so that we have the required cities, required resilient and sustainable cities that we should have? Are we putting across the requisite policies and the projects management systems that are being put in place for us to live well? From policy
I don't
direction.
think it's our strongest point. I mean, at the forum, one of the things we heard that was very striking to me was that the objectives of the last national urban policy, only 50% was achieved. That says a lot. It says a lot that we live in a country where an entire green belt, I know, I talk about this East Legon green belt all the time because it happened before my very eyes. 1 minute there was an entire green belt, and the next minute there was none.
Yeah.
And nobody
vanished.
made a sound. And it's like, okay, the green belt, but the green belt is a green belt for a reason. And I know that, of course, there were all things happen for those things to be able to happen. Things like rezoning and rezoning places like wetlands and green belts and green spaces, so that it becomes possible for us to have infrastructure, concrete infrastructure in those spaces. So as far as the policies, I'm sure, as with everything else, when it comes to the policy on paper, we are probably doing like over 100%. As the policy is structured on paper. When it comes to implementation, we run into all kinds of problems, and we all must take responsibility for that. So on the policy level, where it is on paper, I'm sure it's fine. But even then, you know, we were told that our national urban policy, we a lot of resources, a lot of brain power goes into putting out a policy. So if
we don't implement them
over the period, you have only 50%, you're able to achieve only 50% of your target. I think we must question ourselves and really strive to do better. And this current one that is the draft is being drafted right now, hopefully will take into consideration the reasons why 50% of the last policy document were not able to be achieved. And we must work to make sure that it gets done. So on policy, maybe not so great, but I'm sure that my co-panelists will have more to say about that.
So for you, the policies are there, they've been created, but the implementation is where we have a problem.
Yes.
Ms. Lynch, first of all, you share with us your contribution at the Urban Forum. It's supposed to be your first, right? Have you ever been to the Ghana Urban Forum?
Yeah, so yes, I have. So I was here in person in 2022. And worked with the team who planned it. And unfortunately this year I had to join virtually. But it was still a joy to watch, and you can tell why it was such a success listening to
the contributions from the moderator and the chairperson.
Yeah. You know, there's a reason that Doc has been the moderator so many times. We heard at the beginning she was able to very quickly summarize 2 days of dialogue into just a few minutes. But yeah, so I have participated in the Ghana Urban Forum.
Great.
I've also participated in the World Urban Forum a few times.
Great.
And
sorry, and what about the African one too? The African Urban
no,
Forum?
so I haven't participated.
This is the first one coming up. Okay, but then let me seize the opportunity to congratulate you, Mr. Lynch, because you've done so well. Not only have you participated in the Ghana Urban Forum, but we've all been monitoring your activities, and particularly your work around the Garrett Project and all of that. And I am not surprised. I'm sure a lot of people are not surprised that the World Bank recognized you and awarded you for the whole World Bank. group across the globe?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that the recognition?
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And that tells a lot. I mean, congratulations, and we pray that you get the strength to continue to do a lot more, not just for Ghana, but globally as well, and for the bank.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I also I won 2 awards in 1 week.
Really?
I've been at the World Bank for 17 years, and
Wow.
the 2 awards I got were in the same week, so it's quite a coincidence. But
Oh, good.
the second award that I won is actually related to the Garrett Project, and it was
Good.
for
Good.
championing environmental and social safeguards.
Great.
And so I want to highlight that because
That's
it is
important,
emerging as one of the strengths of the Garrett Project,
Okay.
which is, you know, quite complex on the environmental side and the social side.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful to get recognition for excellence in that area.
Absolutely.
So I would like to share some thoughts on the
Please.
Ghana Urban Forum. First, to share that it's really has included some of the best practices in urban forums.
Okay.
One of the sessions that Doc didn't mention was the Journalism Academy that happened right before the opening. Which really was focused on trying to equip the media with the basics of urban issues in Ghana so that their reporting can be stronger and they have a better understanding of urban trends and challenges. Also, the inclusion of the call for academic papers, really trying to promote local research, to give voice to academics. A couple of ideas emerged from the forum that I think, you know, it'd be great to hear your opinion on it. But in terms of community voice, there was a proposal to have either regional urban fora or to hold the next Ghana Urban Forum in Kumasi so that it's more accessible to people in northern parts of the country.
Do you think that that would work for us, hosting, Doc, since you have moderated, moving it to a different region and all of that, like sort of rotating?
We've done that before. Well, we held one in Sunyani.
In Sunyani, yes.
Yes, I think in
I remember.
2012 or so.
No, that would be 2016.
2016, we
Yeah.
held it in Sunyani. It went there. But I got the impression that apart from holding it outside Accra, people wanted to have a feel, a taste, sort of an opportunity to be part of this process. So one contributor or one participant actually asked that it be decentralized so that, you know, you could have a series of fora building up to the national forum. It's a great idea, but the logistical implications were enormous. However, one thing that emerged at this event was the use of technology. And so if we could deploy that, you know, in getting this out to people on the street, people who live in the cities, people who are affected by policy, the actions of local authorities, and so on, it would be great. I mean, it would be more representative and more meaningful, you know. But having said that, the question that came up, which I keep reflecting, is with all this richness, what do we do with it? I mean, with all the rich contributions and recommendations, how far are we able to carry it? Ms. Lynn talked about the Journalism Academy, which we've done as a breakfast event forum.
The main forum.
Yes. For me, it's a very exciting concept because I always say that journalists are Ghanaians first before they are journalists.
Yeah.
So with a dedicated event for them to be able to engage policymakers, to be able to engage practitioners, I would have loved for them to be able to take advantage of it and do interesting stories from their perspective. Like in 2022, the government statistician was there. And,
Yeah.
he actually said to us that, look, if we're going to use population to assess or demarcate urban areas, we have a lot of trouble. We need to look at
losing
it
it,
a more holistic approach. So I was expecting journalists to, ask questions. And, and it was like they had poured cold water on those who were there, and like you rightly said, I mean, when I'm moderating it and I'm not getting questions, then I pounce on the people I know, which is
like me,
like you. And there was a lady from GTV here, and I asked her to ask a question. The way she shrunk back into herself, I realized that I probably was embarrassing her or something. But you pointed it out. If we're going to, it came out very strongly in the forum that if we're going to do this, we need journalists as partners.
Yeah.
We need them in a very active and engaged role, helping to disseminate information, helping to track special interest issues and that kind of thing. So we need to do the academy better. Like you pointed out, we do it at breakfast time. However delicious, however attractive the breakfast is, you will not be able to get a lot
the journalists
of
get busy early that morning.
Turning up at 7:30 a.m. and that kind of thing. But I want to plead with my journalists that they are citizens of Ghana. They live in these cities. They cross these roads. They sit in the traffic. They see the garbage. It affects them, and I need them to be more curious, more engaged, asking questions when it comes up like that. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So one important thing that the ministry will have to do is to rethink the whole journalism academy and then see how we can make it more productive and interesting. This year had Dr. Mensa Abrampo of the National Development Planning Commission talking about it in relation to the long-term Vision Perspective 2057, and that was quite exciting. So having said that, if we are able to get our journalists on board as partners, we are able to get a mechanism for having a regional fora where the different parts of the urban sector or people, stakeholders can come together and reflect on some of those issues and have discussions around what urbanization means within their local context. It would be really exciting.
Yeah.
It will also give us an opportunity to be able to disseminate international directions in urbanization. We learned about things like sponge cities. I don't know if the chairperson remembers the sponge cities thing, but disseminate that kind of learning, but also to be able to disseminate even national policy. Let me conclude. I'm on a roll here, but
and that's fine.
You see, it emerged that over 50% of the 2012 National Urban Policy had not been implemented. Yes, indeed. Those who analyzed the extent of implementation try to establish the reasons why. And you'll find that a number of the objectives and the actions that were not achieved were found relevant and have found their way back into the draft document, which means that they still need to be done. We need to unpack the issues why these policies don't get done. The issue of coordination, coordinated action between the ministries and the agencies with the kinds of responsibilities, actually working in tandem and agreeing on it was a big thing. The issue of capacity was also a big thing. Being able to build capacities from the national level to the subnational and local levels. And even that, so that even as the world is moving on and we're becoming more technologically advanced, we also need to deal with the basic things. So capacity was a very big thing.
Okay.
The issue of sanctions, making sure that
people are punished for the wrongs.
things, and visibly so. it may send a message of
deter others from
others.
offending.
And then getting the structures right.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, LUSPA at the national level and linking it to the fiscal planning and other units at the subnational level is still a challenge we need to manage.
You want to top up on that, but I was okay. So you finish with the topic.
Yeah, I just on this topic of coordination and partnership, I don't think that it's the need for better coordination is only limited to within the government agencies. I think that there's a huge opportunity for better coordination with development partners. And specifically on the updated national urban policy, I wonder if the 50% of actions that were not taken up from 2012, was it for a lack of financing? And so, I think that there's space for the updated national urban policy to really serve as the coordinating force for development partners. That the Ministry of Local Government and other related ministries can use that to go to development partners like the World Bank, like the European Investment Bank, EU, bilateral donors, to say, we have a plan for our cities. How will you support us? Can you support us financially, with technical assistance? And which elements of the plan are you going to be accountable for to provide support?
But from where you said, have we been effective as a country in coordinating effectively with the DPs, for instance?
I'd say there's room for improvement.
We can do better.
For sure. I've worked
in which directions, though? So you guide those who are to take these actions.
Yeah, I've worked in several different regions and countries, and in some countries, the government takes the lead and delivers the message that, okay, World Bank, we want your support on this topic, and here's our list of things that we would like you to help us with. I think that we
need to be more proactive.
Yes, to direct more. I think that there's often, and it's the fault of development partners sometimes too, because they come and say, I have this product. Do you want it or you don't, or do you not want it?
Maybe if we were to come to the DPs and say that, okay, we also want this product. Can you help us with it?
Yes.
We don't have to wait for you to say, look, I have this product. Do you want it or you don't want it?
Yeah. Exactly. And to coordinate, an example is there are several development partners right now working on sustainable cities.
Yeah.
Right? And there's, on our end, we try to work to make sure that we're not overlapping with the support we're providing. But I think that it would be far more effective if the government were playing that role.
So let me break it down so that our folks get this. You are saying that if we have all these concerns and challenges regarding how we make our cities and our communities better, we should be able to coordinate with your institutions, the likes of your institutions, the development partners, the UN and all of that, and present that, look, our gutters need to be fixed. We need our communities upgraded. We need a lot more compact trucks for our sanitation systems. And if we coordinate effectively with you, we should be able to get that assistance to help.
Yeah, and I think that with the update to the national urban policy, a lot of effort has been put in, a lot of diagnostics, a lot of consultations to make that policy as the roadmap. So I think there's an opportunity to leverage that now in dialogue with development partners.
Yeah, that's a good revelation. But Ms. Adi, as we talk about partnership, and I'm glad that Doc brought the area of journalists, I would top up with other actors as well. So the chiefs, for instance, the MMDAs, the MC, the municipal, the assemblies, municipal chief executives, district chief executives. How have we coordinated with them in the past? How can we do it better? What role do you think your outfit, for instance, can play in closing this gap?
Okay. Thank you very much. I had an idea for your for the Journalism Training Academy. So let me just
please go ahead.
In terms of how the seemingly poor participation or active participation I think that a lot of times people need a prompt.
Yeah.
For something like that, I think way before you have the academy, you should ask that everybody comes with a story from their community.
Okay.
And then that becomes the basis for discussion. And if people have to talk about the story they've written, it's easier. You have to break things down into bite-sized pieces that people can actually work with or deal with. Because just because you're a journalist doesn't mean that you can actually bite into something as big as urban policy
Urban issues, yeah.
and all of that. But you have to make it journalist
Conscious
relevant.
effort to me, yeah.
It has to be journalist relevant. You know, you can send out a questionnaire, for instance, and let them answer just 3-4 questions before they come, and then let that be the starting point for them for you to engage them and build a confidence.
Okay, so you want you want the ministry to make conscious effort to identify potential journalists who.
I don't even think it's about that.
Yeah.
That's not
Okay.
the angle. The angle is that. The preparation for the academy must go beyond getting a good speaker.
Yeah.
You must get them engaged before they get there.
Yeah.
So you ask everybody to bring a story.
Yeah.
I don't know how many they are. Bring
Yeah.
a short 500, 250 word story.
Yeah.
Something that relates to your community, something that you see, something that's unique. When they come there to the academy, then you discuss the stories. They could have sent it ahead. You could pick out the ones that are relevant. You could have shared stories amongst themselves. But it allows you to generate the interest and the conversation. And then it gives them a clear pathway to get into what you're trying to do. Otherwise, it's too broad.
Yeah.
It's too broad because all they're trying to do for the most part is try to get a story out.
Right.
They're not here to consume all your big policy documents and all of that.
Right.
So that's one way to break it down to
Yeah.
them. So ask for them to come with a story or send 3 questions out.
Right.
4 or 5 questions out and say that everybody should answer 2 of them. And from that, and also it helps you to understand their level, where they're coming from, their perspective, and then it helps you to actually prepare the material for the academy, helps you to identify relevant speakers, and it will be, even if it's for 2 hours, it will be more
It'll be
meaningful.
effective. Good. And beyond even the specifics of the Journalists Academy for the Urban Forum, from where you said, because I know you monitor the media space quite a lot, do you see that there isn't that much interest from journalists? Because I see that a lot of journalists report a lot of these urban issues quite often. What probably you would say is that some of the pertinent ones, they report them as in when the events happen. So when there's flooding, then they all come together. When there's an accident, then they start talking about them. But beyond that, they go back. And how do you see how we report? The journalists are taking the urban issues, and what would you recommend?
I think that beyond journalists, it's important to bring media houses on board. And these people are not operating in a vacuum. They are working in a context. And so there's being interested in what is important and relevant, and being relevant for the institution that you work for.
Yeah.
So it's also important, maybe at a future day, to have engagement with media owners. And that is if we are actually serious about the academic. Have an engagement with media owners. Let them understand why this is important. People like you have won awards for this kind of work. So that is a great incentive. There could be others. There could be other awards that could be the time to say that, look, there are all these opportunities for you. There's these things that you can do to move forward, because it has to be within the context. Because they can't just isolate themselves and say that this is what I'm doing. You might lose your job if your media house does not see how important it is. And it's not going to happen automatically. If you want media houses to take this seriously, you must also be serious about
how you
them
approach
in.
them.
So those are some of the things as far as I mean. I'm very keen on this meet. I didn't attend
that aspect,
but I think
right?
it's very important because it speaks to the public education where I work. It's important that when we are doing public education, we look at the angles. It's not just about what you're delivering. What you're delivering, where is it landing? Is it taking root? Is it bearing fruit? So the communication has to be, you must have a feedback loop in there. it's very easy not to do it. You know, it's very easy to just put out the communications and just tick your box and say we've done it. But it is important for it to have relevance and to have impact.
Yeah.
That is that's where you should measure from.
Well, I'll come back to you on the other actors.
I have one more thing.
On the media?
No. One other idea.
Okay,
Sorry,
please go ahead.
before I
Go
forget.
ahead. I'll bring Doc and
The
Ms. Lynch in on the
decentralization
media
of
as
the
well.
fora, for instance, the decentralization of the fora. Instead of trying to build new structures, it would be great to use local government
That's right.
to be the basis for decentralized urban fora.
Yeah.
Whereby they pull in the relevant resources, human, and from their districts, speak to urban development in the context of their district.
Yeah.
And then that will feed the big forum that you have at the national level. If it's happening there, they already have an office. They don't need to rent space. They already have people in the. They can call experts, but do it at that community level. And at that community level, bring more of ordinary voices into the process.
Yeah.
Look, even when there is development, when there's a road building, for instance, somebody's making a road. We have situations where contractors block the road, make life impossible for the community, and all of that. Part of urban development, urban strategy should be that we are not just here to do development. You must keep the human beings at the center of it. If your road building activity makes life impossible for 3 months, there are implications for people's mental health, for people's well-being, arriving late at work, dealing with stress. It's real.
Yeah.
So if you decentralize this urban for at the local level, it makes it possible for more ordinary voices to have an opportunity to voice
More
out
participatory.
and be a part of the solution. And at that level, it's easy to let people feel that they are going to be a part of the solution because it's local. The problems are local. It's something they see. If a cable is cut, it's an entire community.
Identify.
They know, and they can bring whoever is relevant. And again, managing these things in these bite-sized pieces will also help to be more impactful in the long run.
Okay, I'll come back to you on the other actors beyond media. But since you lay the foundation for the significance of bringing the media on board, Doc, is it the case that maybe the media is doing, but we are not seeing, or is it the case that there's a way they need to do so that it can have a lot more impact? Like I mentioned earlier, we see them reporting all the time. Is it because they haven't, we don't have something like the way we report sports? We have journalists dedicated to reporting sports or entertainment, and so all eyes are on that. The journalists who are reporting on sports, for instance, can hold officials accountable for everything. If a policy, for instance, if you take the NUP, I don't know how many journalists know that one, there is the NUP, which was launched in 2012, and whether the content or whether what we set out for ourselves to achieve have been achieved, and whether we were able to achieve only 50%, and they're asking questions. So how do they do it? What do you think they should do so that they make the urban issues very core of their reporting?
You're right. I mean, there are journalists covering urban issues, but very often what we see is that when there's an issue, a problem,
then
a
they all
flood,
run for it.
or a bad smell or something, something sensational, then they throw it up. And again, at these events, a lot of them come to cover.
They come to
don't
events to cover.
Yes, they don't
so
come
not
to
that they generate their own issues.
They come to cover the event. What did the person say? Where's the minister's speech? And then off they go. You see, so that's why I prefaced what I said earlier, that I want them to think of themselves as Ghanaians first.
Originate the issues themselves.
And then and say, this is about me, and it's about my neighborhood or something first, and then be interested in it in a citizenship capacity. However, perhaps we have not done enough in terms of trying to generate a special interest or a kind of, because we haven't done enough
Yeah.
You know,
To bring them around
to
the
bring
table.
them around. I
Okay.
mean, the urban policy would be about 50 pages, and then there's so on and so forth. And who is going to sit down and read this apart from a policy maker or somebody who's going to implement it? Can we have it in bite-sized chunks? I mean, to quote the chairperson, put it on a flyer basis, so that they are encouraged to ask more questions. Again, the issue or the suggestion that Ms. Adi made about letting them come with their own stories, their own interests, so that it is about them. It's about how it touches their personal lives. It's about how it impacts on them. Would be a way of digging or dividing the spaces for them to see the attendant issues, and then also being able to bring the media houses on board, because a lot of these people also work within the policies, the house policy of what is important, what makes it to the front page, and what you're going to be recognized and rewarded for.
Okay.
So I believe that we can do better in that regard. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Lynch, in the area of when you speak to the journalists, and we've had a segment, we have an episode where we had editors in here, and we're going to have another one. I'm sure maybe we'll invite Chair to also come in. Dr. Yao Graham, for instance, had a whole newspaper for urban issues. The was public agenda or something. Public agenda.
Yes.
ISODEC. Yes, it was the public agenda.
Public agenda.
Yes.
And dedicated to it. So everybody knew, the whole country, we all knew that you go for public agenda and everything about it is.
Yes.
But when you speak to the media outlets, this is so expensive to run because it's not commercially viable. Unlike the other segments that I talked about in the entertainment or sports, that's a more, it attracts a lot more funds. From DP's side, how can we encourage media outlets, either financially or journalists? What can we do to attract them to get on the table and talk about the issues that concern us so that together we address them?
Yeah. Well, I think first just to build on this idea of how the Ghana Urban Forum could foster more interest in urban issues among journalists is that the forum already has a call for academic papers. And this year, I think it was the first year that it was oversubscribed. People submitted their research topic that they wanted to present, and there were too many for the slots that were allocated. So what if there were a call for stories or a call for short videos on an urban topic, and that this could be an opportunity to give visibility to maybe an up-and-coming journalist, right? Give an audience and potentially have it picked up by a newspaper or a media outlet.
Okay.
I think that could be an opportunity. Maybe a more provocative remark. Ghana is majority urban, right? There's more people living in urban areas than in rural areas. I'd assume that the majority of news is related to cities and to urban livability. And so maybe it's, not a reporting on policies and specific programs, but I'm sure it's definitely out there in the dialogue.
Okay.
And so maybe there could be a role of trying to help connect the dots for journalists of, there's all of this reporting on flooding, on traffic congestion, et cetera. Here are the policies and programs that the government is doing to try to address them.
Ms. Adi, aside journalists taking the news to the people, aside them reporting for the public to know, we know that we need almost everybody to come on board. The market women who are selling, almost taking over streets, and also making some, the filth coming from the market, they dump them in the middle of the road and all of that. What are we doing to bring them on the table? The chiefs who own the lands, which we fight over almost all the time, what are we doing to bring them also onto the table? And then the assemblies.
Okay.
From NCC perspective.
So for these groups that you have mentioned are all key stakeholders in this in this story, you know, because their actions have implications for success or failure, and so and a lot of times people act in ways that serve their interest, but do not actually think about how it serves the common interest, because nobody has brought their mind to it. You know, other times people act only in ways that serve their interest because they know that there are no consequences for doing the wrong thing. And so, as much as we must focus on intensive public education to ensure that all these groups, especially those who, you know, live figuratively in their own world, you know, doing their own thing and not feeling connected to the bigger picture of the community beyond what they are able to sell to the residents, you know, that those people begin to feel a part of the community and take responsibility for outcomes of actions in the community. And so, and that is why something like using the local government as a mechanism for pulling all of this together is important. Using an institution like NCC for the public education in a way that is able to connect properly, you know, because what you say to people who are selling in a market is quite different to what you say to traditional rulers and landowners. The communication for these groups are quite different. You need that specialized touch. I also wanted to say something concerning what you said about DPs, about how we connect. I think that DPs must start to define success more broadly. You know, so if you see policy development, the actual policy development element as important and worthy of funding, you must see the dissemination as important and worthy of independent funding as well, as a part of the project that stands on its own, whereby if it's journalists, if it's NCC, if it's institutions that are responsible for the dissemination, you bring them on board from the beginning. You make them feel a part of it. I mean, you'll be amazed. Their involvement from the beginning will help you to structure your own outcomes in ways that make the public education better, more impactful, easier in the long run. So from the DP side as well, there is a lot of lip service paid to, there must be public education, there must be information sharing, there must be dissemination. But in terms of the reality of it, how do we bring this to life? If it is funding that journalists need because you say it's not commercially viable, for instance. ISODEC, that newspaper was funded from someplace. I don't think the funding came from sale of the papers. You understand? And so you must understand that the reality is that in order to be able to be successful in this aspect of the project, you must put resources there as well. And you must put the resources there independent of, as a sub of the entire project. And not just an add-on at the end. Or I get a lot of invitations to a lot of things. And then they'll say something like, we have developed this maybe manual or something, and we are launching it. So come for the launch. You haven't done anything at all for dissemination. Just because there's a representative from NCC at the launch means probably nothing in terms of the dissemination aspect of the project that you define for yourself. So how the value that we put on some of these things, we must just reevaluate it and make sure that we are putting the correct weights on different elements in the project.
So we're going to devote the last 15 minutes of this program for your questions and answers. When we return from the break, we would want to know what Ghana can do to ensure that our cities are smart and they are sustainable. We want to compare with what others are doing elsewhere and whether we are on the right path. What should we be doing immediately? We'll return after the break.
Rain, rain, go away, come again another day. Little children want to play. Rain, rain, go away. Mommy, what are you doing?
Getting rid of our rubbish, my dear. This way, we don't have to pay the boiler man.
Our teacher said we should not put boiler into the gutter. If we do so, our house and community will get flooded.
Well said, my daughter. Your teacher taught you right. We should not dump our solid waste into gutters and drains. Some of us rush to do so immediately we notice it is about to rain. This blocks the drains and causes floods, which destroy lives and properties. We should clean our gutters regularly and avoid building on waterways to prevent flood. The rain should always be our blessing and not a misfortune.
If we throw our boiler into the gutter and don't keep our house clean, we will be taken to court and we will pay plenty of money.
I have heard you, my dear. I will not do that again.
We will not dump our boiler in the gutter. We will keep our city clean. Together, let us help stop the floods in Accra.
Dear residents of Aloboshi, as part of measures to mitigate flood risks and solid waste management in Aloboshi, the Garrett project will undertake rehabilitation and expansion works on selected storm drains, provide solid waste infrastructure and street lights, improve conditions of selected roads and paved access, as well as improve and extend supply of piped water services in your community. We understand that the implementation of these interventions may affect some of you. If you have any complaints or concern on the interventions, call our toll-free lines 0800 800 900 on all networks and 0800 500 600 on MTN and Vodafone for quick and effective resolution of your complaint. You can also WhatsApp us on 024 1340 130 or visit the Garrett Project's website and lodge your complaint. For more information on specific project, contact the Okaikwe North Municipal Assembly, the Assembly member of Aloboshi, the Community Liaison Officer, or any member of the Community Development Committee. Your cooperation and collaboration during this phase of development are of utmost importance for the successful implementation of the project. Together, let us manage flood and solid waste in Aloboshi. Dear residents of Akwete-Man, as part of measures to mitigate flood risks and solid waste management in Akwete-Man, the Garrett project will undertake rehabilitation and expansion works on selected storm drains, provide solid waste infrastructure and street lights, improve conditions of selected roads and paved access, as well as improve and extend supply of piped water services in your community. We understand that the implementation of these interventions may affect some of you. If you have any complaints or concern on the interventions, call our toll-free lines 0800 800 900 on all networks and 0800 500 600 on MTN and Vodafone for quick and effective resolution of your complaint. You can also WhatsApp us on 024 1340 130 or visit the Garrett Project's website and lodge your complaint. For more information on specific projects, contact the Okaikwe North Municipal Assembly, the Assembly member of Akwete-Man, the Community Liaison Officer, or any member of the Community Development Committee. Your cooperation and collaboration during this phase of development are of utmost importance for the successful implementation of the project. Together, let's help manage flood and solid waste in Akwete-Man.
Welcome back to Public Concern. So tonight we're talking about the Ghana Urban Forum 2024 that took place just a couple of days ago, and we're taking a look at how we combine the policies, the numerous policies we have in this country, together with the partnerships that we need. So you and I, we are part of the partners, the agencies, the government institutions, the chiefs, the assemblies, everybody coming together, the experts, the practitioners, coming together to ensure that we make our cities the best place, our towns the best place, so that the flooding that consuming the people of Kaneshie, the fire consuming the folks in Circle, Ekumog, and all of that, these are the basic issues. And fortunately for us, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development held Urban Forum to discuss all these things that we talk about on this platform. You want to share your concerns with us. You also want to talk about this. How do we partner? Who should we be partnering? What do you expect government to be doing? What do you expect the development partners like the World Bank to be doing to support? You can share your concerns with us. 0241 340 130 is the number. 0241 340 130. And fortunately in the studio is Catherine Lynch, and she is a senior urban specialist with the World Bank. She's also the task team leader for the Garrett Project and Ghana Secondary Cities Support Program. Also, Dr. Esther Ofe Abuaje, former director, Institute of Local Government Studies, Governance and Social Policy Analyst. Madam Kathleen Adi is the chairperson, National Commission for Civic Education. I know you wanted to tell me, learn the name of my organization. But Ms. Lynch, before we went on break, now I wanted to find out from you, and I heard that the UN Habitat actually modeled a certain forum out of the Ghana Urban Forum. You know about that, Doc? Good. So that's a good start, that we started something in Ghana, or we're doing something in Ghana. We've been doing this urban forum led by the ministry, and the UN Habitat is learning. As a country, as a developing nation like us, what are the critical things that you think we ought to be taking a look at in order to have sustainable cities? Looking at all the things that you have been seeing in Ghana, and you've been around here in this country for some time.
Yeah. So there's a lot of need in Ghana's cities. There's still not universal access to basic services, and so a lot of investment in general is needed. But over the last couple of years, the bank has worked with the government on a sustainable cities strategy, and that included a diagnostic of what's happening in Ghana's cities in order to come up with a set of recommendations. That strategy highlights investments in 4 areas as being very strategic to change the trajectory of urban growth in Ghana. The first is investment in urban transport and mobility. Transport is really the frame or skeleton of a city, and so it influences the overall growth. It can reduce emissions and reduce air pollution, right? So it has many co-benefits to it. Solid waste management. This is a huge issue in Ghana, not just from the urban environment, but also because of its impact on urban flooding, and that's what Garrett is focused on. Affordable housing. People need quality shelter. And then land management and information systems. Before the break, you mentioned also smart cities. Yeah. And part of our findings were that having a robust land information system and urban data platform is really the basic for any kind of smart city interventions. Now, layered on top of that is metropolitan scale governance. These key issues that are facing Ghana's cities, they're interjurisdictional. They cut across all the multiple MMDAs
so
in an urban area.
So let me take you to the last one, the metropolitan urban governance. Is that what you refer to? Break it down for me, and I have a question on that.
Yeah. So, for example, in Garrett, the focus is on 17 assemblies within Greater Accra. Yeah. Now, the issue of flooding goes beyond one assembly's boundaries.
Transcends to the other and all of that.
Right. And so there's a need for them to come together.
And that coordination is not there.
Well, it actually is starting to be there. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, the ICMC was established, the Interjurisdictional Committee for Management and Coordination, something along those lines. I have it written down. And it's really a first step into establishing a kind of metropolitan, interjurisdictional management structure to tackle these types of issues.
So let's take the Garrett, for instance, that you lead, and then the GSCSP, for instance. How do you think these projects and programs have made some difference or can make some difference?
Yeah. So Garrett, especially because of its focus on the 17 assemblies in Greater Accra, has really played an important role in pulling them together to talk about shared issues. I think that actually another World Bank supported project can illustrate this very well, and that's the Kumasi Urban Mobility and Accessibility Project, which aims to put in place a bus rapid transit system in Kumasi that will cut through, as a first phase, 5 MMAs.
Yeah.
In that case, this is a piece of infrastructure that will belong to all 5. And all 5 need to come together to create a vision for the type of urban development that will take place along that corridor. And so in that project as well, there is, in the preliminary design, a set of performance grants that would be put in place to incentivize those 5 assemblies to take measures to be better coordinated, to come up with a shared vision, and then in return they would get capital to do investments, small-scale infrastructure investments in their assemblies.
Look, people want to see our cities smart. We want to see our cities resilient enough. The fire that's gutting folks, burning people and products and destroying properties and all of that. In Circle, for instance, the floods that is consuming people in Ashaman and Kaneshie, they will all come to you and say, look, doesn't mean a lot to us. We don't understand all of these things that you people talk. All we want is that floods won't occur. All we want is that even if they occur, it would have less negative impact on us. We, at least our properties will be safe, our lives will be safe. Do you see us pushing towards this direction, or we are just talking and next year we'll be hit by the same problems? We'll come and sit here and we talk and we talk. Are you seeing action backing this talk? Either at the Urban Forum or even on this forum?
Okay. There is action backing this talk because at least we are talking about this. But an area in which we shall require change is taking ownership and responsibility for the things that caused the situation in the first place. I think one very important thing that came up one experience that was shared at the forum was a city engineer who had gone to exact or enforce some discipline. The way they were chased away had all kinds of people set on them, because it was not in somebody's interest to follow through to enforce the sanctions that were required. I think that experience was very vivid. Point is, if we all took responsibility for not doing the kinds of things that bring about these things in the first place, the problem will be abated somewhat. I mean, if we all took responsibility for the ways in which we managed our rubbish at our level, if we all took responsibility for one thing you see around Accra these days a lot are herds of cattle. Herds of cattle crossing the streets and that kind of thing. I mean, whose are these? And then my driver will tell you hit one and you see who's there. So that I am not in any way absolving government and government agencies and local authorities of their responsibility for ensuring proper spatial planning, land use, and all of those kinds of things. I'm not in any way estimating the importance of bylaws and all of those kinds of things. But the citizenry also need to do their part. They need to invest or sacrifice some of what they would do quickly for quick gains to get a long-term...
But governments, let's be honest. Are we getting enough commitment from government as well? Is somebody pushing government enough?
I think this whole discussion has been silent on the role of civil society. apart from talking about the media and mentioning the chiefs and pastors,
CSOs.
we haven't talked about CSOs. CSOs in their watchdog and advocacy roles. And also,
Have they gone silent on urban issues?
They haven't, but we could
Better.
encourage them.
The
in their
same punch that they are approaching politics.
Yes.
If they
yes.
approach same with urban issues, we should be somewhere
we'll
better.
be able to move governments at the same time, talk to DPs at the same time, engage citizens, and assess what we're doing wrong in our behavior change communication efforts.
Yeah, Ms. Hadi, what do you think about that?
I strongly agree. I strongly agree, and we must lay the emphasis on the doorsteps of all the stakeholders. But the reason why the citizen action is important is that we must hold government accountable actively, not just say we are holding government accountable, but actually take the steps
to hold them accountable.
Yes, take the steps. Use the systems that are available. For instance, at the very local level, how many of us know who your assembly member is, for instance? How are they using what are they using the common fund for? How are they accounting for choke drains, poorly placed structures within the locality?
How can people ask these questions? How should they do it? How should they go about it?
I think that people have to understand that the power lies in their hands.
So what should they do?
You have every right to go to the assembly and ask questions.
And you think that
Yes,
because
you
that's
do.
the challenge.
If
you think
one person
regular
cannot,
person.
yes, if one person cannot do it, mobilize, form a group, form a community action group, and let that group go into that assembly. And at the end of the day, if we don't take up that responsibility on this side, it's going to be very difficult. It's not to say that the government side is important, but the push that is required has to come from the people. It is important. That push, at the end of the day, fundamentally, politicians want to stay in power. They will do what is required to stay in power. So if we give them these indicators that these are the requirements, they are not inherently evil people. If these are the requirements, they will go by the requirements. Let's reward the right behavior, punish wrong behavior. Let's sit down and be honest and define what wrong behavior is. At the forum, I spoke about the fact that we, as citizens, sometimes remove ourselves from important issues because we think that this one doesn't affect me. When we say that let us elect heads of local government, and we want citizens to be part of that move to push and ensure that we are elected, because when you have an elected municipal executive or district executive, the accountability dynamic is completely different from when that person is appointed from the center. So be interested in all these elements that come together to make your community work. Don't turn away and act like this is not your business, because this is not your business means that the appointment will happen and naturally people will respond to where the appointing authority is. But if you elect the head of your local government, you can do so much more. Because the accountability dynamic is stronger,
But
so,
okay.
And even before that, I mean, we're talking
not
about
too rudely, but let me just say that you can keep the comments coming. I've seen quite a number of messages, but I have to be honest with you, and because I have announced that you send your messages, I have a challenge with a technical challenge which is being resolved. As soon as it comes through, definitely we will share your thoughts, and quite a number of messages have come through. So 0241 340130 is the number.
Yes, and in relation to that, there are certain entities that should be representational. You see, for instance, your traditional authorities have they have the social gravitas or the capital to be able to ask local governance leaders questions. Your faith leaders have that capacity. Your associations of market women can, go with a delegation and ask a question, what is happening to our drain, what is happening to our gutter. And again,
so the group action works.
The group action works. And then also there's something very interesting that I'm observing. There are little or localized efforts to try and take some action. And I believe there are a group that's working on drains in Accra, I think
the Bus Stop Boys?
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It would be
That
interesting
initiative is good.
look at how such initiatives are trying to make
We have this,
practical differences, and how local authorities can recognize and encourage them. Not to abdicate their responsibilities to them, but to recognize, encourage, and collaborate
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. Let me see, Director, if we're having difficulties with this, we can have a laptop and maybe we can quickly read them. But Ms. Lynch, can the DPs also put some pressure on governments?
Yes and no.
In a gentle way, maybe. In a subtle way, maybe.
So definitely within the context of a project that we're working on together, there are typically very clear kind of performance measures and obligations, and in those situations, yes, pressure can be put. I'd like to think of it more as, reminders of what the agreement was, to try to get movement on a specific topic. Outside of that, we can share from our perspective and voice our opinion on different issues, such as the national or urban policy. From our perspective, having the approved updated national urban policy is a key measure to advance urban development in Ghana. We have voiced that, we've been clear about it, but that's the extent of our influence. Yeah.
But Ms. Adia, at the national level, if you take the NUP, for instance, launched 2012, 50% only has been achieved. Is there an institution at the national level that can come forward and question government? Why are we here? Why were we able to only achieve 50% of what we set for ourselves? Give us answers, because that at the national level and questioning the NUP, not a lot of individuals can take up this action.
Absolutely.
Who can begin to question government on why we haven't been able to meet some of these targets?
Okay, so we should look back and say that these are some of the things that we are using our Journalist Academy for. In the Ghana
They should raise the
Urban-
questions.
They raise it in sports, like you said.
They raise it in other departments,
If there was football policy and 50% of it was not achieved, you will
The whole
see.
country will hear.
Everybody will hear. And everybody will be interested, because they will make sure that you are interested. It's the same thing. It's the same.
We need to build
it's the same
our
principle.
media in that
So
direction.
thankfully, there's already that recognition by making the academy part of the Urban Forum. Let's make it more meaningful and help them understand this important role that they can play, in the accountability context as well. Because media holding government accountable on behalf of the people is legitimate and is part of the key things that media is supposed to do. So for me, that goes straight to media more than any other institution. Then there's civil society, of course. Civil society that is focused on this issue and that can be able to sit up and say, no, this and this did not go well, we want to know why, or expose, these are the reasons, these are the power dynamics that interfered with the process, and that is why we no longer have a green belt in East Legon.
And going forward, can we use even the Urban Forum as that tool that holds the system accountable? Is it possible to use even the Urban Forum itself to question why we were not able to do this? If for instance, we've been questioning, the NUP was launched in 2012. We've had about 6-7 urban forums after that. If every 2 years when we go for the Urban Forum, we question where we are with the NUP, can we get somewhere with that? Is it possible to use the Urban Forum as a platform to make some of these demands?
I think Auntie Esther, this is for you.
Yes, indeed. I think that what there is this. Every such policy will come with an implementation plan, is what I'm saying, so that the Urban Forum can provide a forum for reporting on the extent of implementation, within that particular year. Secondly, all policies are the business of the National Development Planning Commission. They are supposed to monitor and track the extent of implementation. However, in all of this, government has a perspective, government has a position, and will require, I don't want to say an independent, but a complementary view, you know, which may also provide other perspectives. So that if we can have a holistic arrangement in which we are able to get government's views, we are able to get government's views for the Ministry of Local Government accounting for the extent of implementation, the National Development Planning Commission providing a view of how it impacts on the rest of the economy and the rest of national development direction, and then a civil society perspective, even including the positions of the professional associations and so on, providing us with all those different dimensions of it. We'll be able to get a holistic view of how we're doing and where we're going.
Let me take some of the questions that are coming from our viewers real quick. This one says, nice initiative and should be taken into consideration. These are facts which should be implemented and also taken into action and not just words. Thank you. Nice initiative. But what happens to those who are outside Accra? What are those outside Accra doing? The next one, I think my difficulties I can't touch at this point in time, so I need a backup. Good evening. The problem is that government is not very intentional about making our cities smart. If government shows commitment, the populace will follow the vision. Look at how difficult it is to find waste bins to throw your rubbish in. This is coming from Ebenezer from Sokode in the Volta region. Again, the civil society, especially the health sector, needs to speak up. The GMA, that's the Ghana Medical Association, should not be interested in fighting for only better conditions of service. Okay, I think now my touch is working. So, hi, how do we make the Ghanaian believe that keeping hygienic environment is a personal responsibility and cleanness come into keep the places clean only when individuals failed to be neat? Okay. Hi GTV, my name is Mohammed and I am in biogas toilet technology. You are selling free. You will bring your invoice. Good evening, and your ladies and panelists. I'm happy to see the NCCE chairperson in your studio. I would like to know the role and mandates of NCCE. It clearly looks like they are not doing enough of that institution, so you want to know more. Let me just I had wanted to read a lot more messages because I haven't had a chance to do that, but since you've asked this, I'll let Ms. Adi. Ms. Adi, they want to know your institutions, the actions coming from the agency.
Thank you very much. In terms of mandates, the short version is that NCC has the mandate to ensure that primarily we stay on the democratic path, that we understand as citizens our rights and responsibilities, and that we work together to build our country, because nobody will build it for us. So that is primarily the mandate. You haven't seen the vans. It's not like they are 100% non-existent, but they're not as many as they were in the past. Currently, we are procuring some vehicles, and hopefully, as time goes on, if we are able to procure a few every year, we'll be able to reach a time where we are operating optimally, where you have the vans in all the corners that you are. Currently, you won't find them moving, but you may find them parked in a market or at a lorry park or a place where a lot of people pass through or congregate. You will find them in those spaces. They work. You'll find them in churches, in meetings of associations of trade, hairdressers association, and so on and so forth. So they are working. It's just that the work may not be as loud, because the.
But maybe people want you to be loud. People want.
Oh no, it's not because we don't want to be loud. It takes resources to be as loud as you can be. So, for instance,
we should be using.
Of course, we're using media more actively, but media needs to be paid for. Airtime needs to be paid for. Just because you are NCC does not mean that you can just.
You have access to everything.
You understand? Okay. So there are all of these things, but I think that the somebody should do a case study. I'm always proposing case studies on the various attempts at providing rubbish bins and what happened to the bins, because I think it's important.
I am told that people steal them and all of that, but we can also devise the ones that would make it impossible for people to.
But it's true. But do you realize that is more expensive? Wouldn't it be cheaper to get people to be of the mindset that we should not be stealing this?
Okay, that we can reserve that debate for another time. So Ghana, great ideas, better policies, but implementation issues. We should be investing more in actions as well for fulfillment. All right. The next one says, good evening, everyone. I have noticed something about a recent building style in Ghana, which is a death trap. Most louver blades on building windows now have net inside the rooms, which is a very bad building style because the louver blades can easily fall off and hurt anyone walking around the building. Sometime back, the nets were fitted outside the window frames to support the louver glass from falling. Can something be done about this? That's a good advice. So good evening and well done. Please try your possible best to stretch it along the rural areas, especially Upper Manyakrobo district, Asesewa, to be precise. My name is Tete. His name is Tete Ruben Sowate. So they want us to stretch the urban forum beyond. It looks like people want to see it everywhere. Is it possible? Because that also requires some funding, resources, and all of that.
Well, it's possible.
We were in Sunyani the last time, though.
Yeah,
but
it's possible. And I was intrigued when the chairperson said, "Oh, the assemblies are there, and they will do it," that kind of thing. The assemblies themselves may have to be creative about how they do these kinds of things. You see, in the Local Government Act, Act 936, amended to 940, sections 40 to 48, I think, and so on, puts in mechanisms or puts in requirements for assemblies to account to the citizens, engage them, give them information, opportunities for citizens' participation. We haven't exhausted all of those kinds of channels.
Okay.
And once it is a requirement of assemblies, it's a requirement for urban assemblies as well. And again, that is where civil society entities who have the wherewithal, what do I mean wherewithal? The information, the understanding, the time, the expertise, and possibly some resources can help to start moving these mechanisms to exacting accountability on these things, encouraging and providing platforms on which they can solicit people's views and also appeal to them to, own the urban process and bring about those kinds of changes. It can be done, it can be decentralized. We need to think about it and then do it. There are other models of decentralized engagement in other sectors, the health sector, for instance, education sector, for instance. We can look at some of how these things work and then move with that.
Ms. Lynch, I want to take your last 20 seconds. Take home. What should we, as we move, how do we ensure that our cities are sustainable, resilient, maybe through the urban forum or other means that you would suggest?
Yeah. So I think, for the next urban forum, one idea could be to try to end the forum with some kind of commitment or resolution or plan that different stakeholders sign on to. This is a common practice with the regional urban forum. So like the one for Africa will be in October, I believe. Leading up then to the World Urban Forum in Cairo. Those forums...
A journalist just said that you should take some of their people to the Global Urban Forum. You just send the message that they should be part.
If you want them to talk.
This one they will report. If you take them outside, the reporting will come. Please.
For sure. So that way the ideas and resolutions from Ghana can feed into the region, can feed into the World Urban Forum.
All right, good. Ms. Adi, people expect that when you finish the urban forum, by the next time we should not see the floods again, we should not see the fire again. What should we take home?
Well, I mean, there was one thing that we did not touch on too much. My other great passion is the greening of the city, sponge cities, whereby we must consciously, do development in a way that ensures that we have green spaces. The other day, I took a second look at Airport City, for instance. That was a wonderful opportunity because we're intentionally building a city from scratch. That place literally has the coverage.
Yeah. That's a good observation.
So we must be more conscious of these things to ensure that we are doing greening. We have all the islands on the road. Why don't we have trees and plants in those islands?
Thank you. That's a very good note to end. So she is Miss Kathleen Adi. Then she's the chairperson for National Commission for Civic Education. That's the NCC. We also had Miss Catherine Lynch, who is a senior urban specialist with the World Bank Task Team Leader, Garrett Project, and Ghana Secondary City Support Program, and also own Dr. Esther Ofe Abuaje, former Director, Institute of Local Government Studies, Governance and Policy Aspect. But let me say a big congratulations to you again.
Thank you.
For that award. A mentor for the entire World Bank, the best mentor for the entire World Bank group is a big deal. And also, Doc, for moderating the Urban Forum for many years. That's why I said our own. She's our own. She's always moderating it. She will do it forever. And then Miss Adi, for the wonderful work that you're doing at the NCC. Continue that good job. Thank you for watching. See you same time on Public Concern next week.
Akwesi, opinko mobi man. Omamba. Oh jaye uji. Sio ye kuyen. Eka wahau esam yariye. Sanku beye daboni. Emrabe sumu. Masakra yamra. Forage. Sio suna wesi deyi. Na wesi nui, Katano na wesi nui, Era na weje gwa bonti, Ejomu hap na ye fi.